Hey everyone, so today I decided I should come on here and do a final study schedule making video. I think it's really important to have something like this in order to keep on track and to get prepared. The only way to, stop feeling like you're unprepared all the time is to actually get prepared and not to overwhelm yourself the week of finals, because that isn't fun at all and you're not going to feel good about yourself if you do that. And especially at the time being, like, if you cram for a final the day before, it's a really bad feeling just because there's so much information and you feel so overwhelmed. So this is how you do it. I have my study schedule down for one class, and that's going to kind of act as a reference point to do the study schedule for our next classes. So I actually did the schedule for my hardest class, or my most time consuming, kind of challenging, the one I really have to focus on the most, and that is my anatomy and physiology class. So I'm going to look for a pencil. I should have gotten that. Okay, so I have a pencil. So as you can see, I actually have it on my finals on this day. I have it like the little abbreviations there. So I have about 4 finals, but I have a practical final next week, but I'm starting for that this weekend. So I'm not going to count that in my final study schedule making, but basically I have one on this day. I have like just 4 finals coming up. Okay, so with this, also if you have papers, you should do this method also. So this is more of like a planner community style. Like, I do have stickers. I'm not like the best at stickers yet, but I hope to be better at it. But okay, so what I do is I have like little study stickers. The way I put my study stickers down, usually a week does not have this many study stickers. I do study during the week normally, but for this it's already gearing down towards the end of the year. I don't have all my classes anymore. Some are already done. So this is how I'm figuring this out. First thing you have to do is list out what classes you have, what finals you're taking in those classes, and what you need to do to prepare for them. The first thing you have to do is write your classes. So you I'm just going to do kind of like a formula style. Class 1, the date is December 10, I don't know. Class 2, December 15th. Class 3, December 19th. I don't really know if those are accurate days, but just to be as an example. So I'm going to put it right here so you can see. So you have, say, 3 finals. You have to decide. The first step is obviously writing down where the finals are, making sure you have all that little information that's super important. So write that down, location, location, location. Next, you have to decide which is your most important class final. So yes, this class is the last one, and you could say, oh, I'll just study for it after these 2 finals. And that is a big no-no. Unless this is a class that you're really confident in, I don't suggest doing that, because on December 16th, you'll feel like, oh crap, now I have to memorize all the information from the semester in about a couple days. So what you do is you have to break it down. So say this is your most important test. You still have these to worry about beforehand. So you really have to start studying for these and balancing it with this already. You cannot wait till this weekend or whatever, in between to study for this class, or else it's going to be overwhelming. So that is the main concept I'm trying to work with. Okay, so every day is different for everyone. You have probably a different schedule every day that you have to balance. Some days are better than others. So another tip would be to schedule the most studying in days you have less to do, and making sure you're still putting in studying hours on the busy days, but for topics that you need less help or less review on. So what I did was, Mondays and Wednesdays are I'll use this one instead. Mondays and Wednesdays are super busy for me. So I'm actually starting my studying for A&P, anatomy, after my A&P final practical, because the 8th is actually 2 weeks to the date. And that is another good thing that I actually learned from another friend of mine, and she was like, yeah, I'm going to study 2 weeks to the date of the final. And I'm like, wow, that's a really good way to break down information. So it just makes a lot of sense. So for this class, what I did. I'm going to show you what I did for this already because I already did it. So for this class, I have about 20 lectures. You know, some are overlapping because the professor didn't finish on time. Like, it's just a bunch of variables, but I have about 20 lectures. What you do is you count the number of lecture material you have to go through, and then you divide it by the amount of days you're gonna have to go through it. You're going to have to take into account when you're placing the material places that you know, what do you have that day? If you have a final that day and it's at night, you're gonna realize, like, for example, this day, I have a final at night for a different class. Am I really going to study anatomy after 7 o'clock on that day? Probably not. And if it is, it's probably something like very basic, very reviewing. So you have to take into account the different variables, and which days are usually, you know, your least productive days, or you're like just too busy to do something else like studying. So keep that in mind, because why would you, you know, put an entire chunk, or like 2 lectures or 3 lectures, for example, on a day that you have a final? So you're going to want to study for the other finals material, cram it right before, right? So definitely for studying under here, I would just put the study, like my study schedule for this class only. Don't try to squeeze in some of your class that is all the way over here. Hope that made sense. So you have your 20 lectures. Okay, so I have 2 weeks to complete it. Obviously, some days you're going to have more time, and you're not just going to want to do 1 lecture. You're going to want to try to finish at least 2. So that is what I did. I combined the more easier, or the ones I already have a good understanding with, those lectures together on days that are either busier or less, it doesn't matter. But so for, say, this is Tuesday and Thursday, those are my this is a reading day, so I have all day. But for like a Tuesday, usually Tuesday, Thursday, I have a lot more time, so I'll do a very complex topic that is a lot, you know, not necessarily like the hardest, but it's just more time I have to dedicate to it, and I know I have to get the material down more than the others. So definitely do it like that. You know, write down the 20 lectures and then star the ones, like let's say the skull, let's say head muscles. Obviously this is very like specific if you know anatomy, but so say the skull is like very hard for you, or you just need to review it more. Make sure you star it. Also, say head muscle is very hard for you, star it. But if you know, you're good with tissues, don't star it. And you could save this for a day that is more busy, because you already know most of the material, and you're more probable to actually complete it because you know it, and it's a busy day already, so you don't want to take up too much time really trying to memorize something hard. Very important. You need to kind of divide it into hard and less hard. I know my handwriting right now is like rough. It's just because I'm focusing on too many things. Okay, so that is what I did. So I have my date of my final over here, and I'm starting to plan already on the December 2nd. Today is December 2nd. So this is what I did. Study stickers on days that I want to definitely study for finals in general, and then underneath I have the little stickers that are going to tell me what topic or what lecture I'm studying for that class. So as I said before, the 2 weeks to the date rule, starting 2 weeks to an exam or a final. As you can see, I'm starting on the 8th to really study and crack down on my anatomy studying, and I have the topics. This stands for structural organization, which is like tissues and histology. But I am going to start on the 6th, one little, you know, lecture or two, because this is going to help me for this final, which is a practical. So if you have any overlap like that, like if you have a class that has a lab and a lecture, kind of see where you can do a combo studying session, and that'll really help. So that's what I did. I have easier days on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I study more then. I'm not working this month because of finals. I just really need to crack down on school, so I canceled like all my work opportunities, and I made sure I'm not getting called in until winter break. So I actually have a lot more time to study now, and I put the topics that are usually like either super hard or just a lot of information that has like a lot of itty-gritty detail that you need to get down and that seem to have been important over the exam. So the integument and like all the muscles and stuff and just all that stuff. This actually is probably going to overlap to this day, so that's why I left this blank. I do like to have a little bit of free time on Sundays to just watch a movie or like go shopping, because it is going to prepare me for, you know, doing well in the next week. Because if I have a good solid weekend with studying but also having relaxation time, I'll be more reset to complete, you know, all this stuff, you know, just being more happy. So then later towards the actual final, you're going to start reviewing the lectures that are a little bit more fresh in your mind. And that makes a lot of sense, because you definitely are going to forget it by the time you review it. But you definitely need to review the one from September. It just makes a ton of sense because you haven't been used to it. You haven't been seeing it often, but you have been seeing, like, say, the nervous system because you just learned it. This is actually good because by the time you're finished with studying the old stuff, you're going to need to study the new stuff again, so it just works out the best. Now, gearing up, I'm just talking about one final still. Gearing up to that final, you notice that these are actually lectures from like really, really early on. And the day before is actually the first 2 lectures. Those are my favorite lectures. I'm really good at those because of, you know, my past experience in like the sciences, and I just have that down pat. So I put that as the one that I'm going to review the day before the final, because why would I focus on this one when I could focus on things that are definitely like harder? So definitely I do recommend that. I'm sorry if I'm saying definitely and actually a lot. It's just trying to emphasize all of the good things about making a good study schedule. So that is all of my tips for making the study schedule by dividing lectures and stuff. Also, as you can see, there's a read through. That means that since this day has 2 somewhat easier, quotes, easier lectures, I'm going to try to do a read through of all the material I just studied for the past 2 weeks. Obviously, I'm not going to get a ton of information down, but it should just be a refresher than anything. I should already have the information down. And then in the morning of this day, I could finish the read through. So that is how you plan for one final. Obviously, there are different finals that you have to plan for, and some are going to need more work than others. This one should hopefully just be kind of done throughout the weeks coming up, and then I'll just finalize it. It's kind of a paper thing. I don't know how to explain it. This one might be a little harder because of the new information. So now what I have to do now is rework it so that I'm making sure I'm not studying too much in one day. So I did just show you guys how to do one. So now you have to kind of build on top of that how you're going to do the other ones. I'm not going to show that in this video. I'm going to just do it on my own off camera, but I will keep in mind, you know, balancing, not studying too much. And that's why I have some free days. Okay, maybe not here, but I do have some free spaces. I do have some like free spaces that I could set up with the other classes. But remember, this is the most important class. I said, you know, pick your most important class and divide the study schedule for that, and then divide the study schedule for the others. But make sure you're not slacking on the other classes and you're studying a good amount each day. So one lecture, a little bit harder, but I could still have time to study for, let's say, my chem final and a topic for that. So I'm going to do that now. Maybe I'll post like a final picture of this on my Instagram. I haven't been using it for my YouTube, but we'll see how it works. If you have any questions, definitely leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video, I know it's hard to technically explain all this stuff because it's just super like everywhere, but I hope you got something out of it, and I hope that you at least got some inspiration to create a schedule, use a